this week will actually start on time, which is really good. Pursuant to the open session, council met for a closed session. Actually, we had an open session at 5:30, and then that ended shortly after 6, and then we had our closed session at 6:30. So it was moved by Councillor Burden and then seconded by Councillor McCann. The pursuant to Section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 C25 as amended, the Council Corporation of Town of Parry Sound moved to a meeting closed to the public in order to address a matter pertaining to E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. It was a property matter, and the receiving of advice that's subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Again, a property matter that was carried and the meeting was held. Any prioritization of the agenda? Seeing none, mover and seconder for the agenda. Councillor McCann, Councillor Burden, Councillor this is about as loud as it's going to get. I'll try to move it closer, but okay. That's about as loud as it's going to get, unless I yell. She'll let you know. Okay. The agenda. I got a mover and seconder. Yeah. All in favor? Then? Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Okay. We are now going to hold 3 public meetings regarding 3 different zoning bylaw amendments. So we're going to take a few minutes to hold these meetings, and any interested persons regarding the 3 zoning bylaw amendments under Section 34 of the Planning Act. I need a mover and seconder to adjourn. Councillor Borneman, Councillor Bachman. We do now adjourn the regular meeting and declare the public meeting open. All in favor? That's carried. Okay. Ms. Johnson, could you explain how the public was notified of zoning bylaw amendment Z 1909 14/16 William Street, Henry?
Yes, notice was given by prepaid first-class mail to the required prescribed agencies and property owners within 120 meters as per regulations, posted on the property, and was placed on the town's website.
Mr. Algie, can you explain the purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment?
Certainly. The purpose of the proposed application is to amend the C1 zone to permit 5 residential units within the existing building, in addition to all the uses in the C1 zone. Currently, the building has 4 residential units and a vacant commercial unit. The property is described as part of Lot 34 on the east side of Gibson Street on Plan 22, part of Lot 5 on the west side of William Street on Plan 2, or 1416 William Street.
Okay. So just to be clear, this one has to do with the Gibson Street, William Street zoning bylaw amendment. Okay? So it's not to do with the one you're interested in. So does anyone wish to speak in favor of this proposed zoning bylaw amendment? If so, please come forward and identify yourself by name and your address. Nope. Okay. Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Nope. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Algie, have there been any letters received as a result of the notice?
No, there has not.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That concludes the first zoning bylaw amendment. Ms. Johnson, can you explain how the public was notified of the second zoning bylaw amendment, being Z 1910 78 Great North Road, and John Jackson, planner for the Parry Property Holdings Limited.
Again, notice was given by prepaid first-class mail to the required prescribed agencies and property owners within 120 meters, posted on the property, and was placed on the town's website.
Mr. Algie, can you explain the purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment?
The applicant has requested to amend the R2 zone to permit 2 additional dwelling units within an existing dwelling and 2 additional units within an existing duplex, and a parking standard of 1 parking space per dwelling unit. Currently, the total number of units is 3, but the application ultimately requests 7 total units between 2 existing structures. The property is described as part of Lot 31 on Plan 10, part of Lot L on Plan 21, or Part 1 of 42R 1277.
Okay. So at this time, does anyone wish to speak in favor of this proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Again, identify yourself, give your name and address.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. John Jackson. I'm actually agent for Mr. Brian Moore, who is the owner of these properties, and he is proposing to further convert the existing residents at this location to add additional rental units. Mr. Moore's well known in the community, has a number of these throughout Parry Sound. The general nature of his accommodation is probably well within the definition of affordable, and we know that is a hot button item throughout the country, so we're hoping to receive council's support.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Okay. All right. Then at this time, does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment?
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to speak here. I'm not so much in opposition of this bylaw changing, zoning bylaw change. What I'm concerned with is the water and sewer lines that are attached to this property. Now, the lines are attached to each one of the houses. It comes down through past my place, alongside of my building, and then goes out on the street, of course, but it's only a 4-inch line. There is now probably 6 to 8 people living in the upper apartment, up in the upper house, and then there's at least 2 people living in the next little house down below, and then there's 2 other little houses on this property. They all attach into the same line, and quite often I get backups in my basement. The last bill I got from Morrow's Plumbing was $241.70. Now, I get this backup quite often because there's too many people on the sewer lines, and it's only a 4-inch line, and I'd like, before the council makes a decision, I'd like them to look at that and see what can be done, because I believe that there should be at least one lateral line coming out of each building. Now, I'm not so concerned with that, so long as the line is increased and doesn't come into my property anymore. And I also understand that there's only a half-inch water line feeding these apartments, and I don't think that's quite large enough. However, I'm going to leave it up to the council to consider before changing the bylaw.
Okay.
That's all I have, and I think my neighbor would like to speak on this too.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you again.
Okay. Welcome out.
I've never done this before, so this is totally new to me.
Just
If you
say-
see me shaking a little bit, it's because I'm not used to being in front of a bunch of people.
Just hold on to the desk and tell us who you are so that the public knows. I think they all know who the last speaker was or whatever, and the one before, but they might not know you. But anyway,
I'm James Campbell.
Yeah.
I live at 76 Great North Road, which is right beside the property in question. I don't know if I'm necessarily opposed to it, but I have a concern in regards to it. Basically for the same reason that Peter does. I have a sewer line that goes into my house that I had put in many, many years ago, and it goes the opposite way from the one Peter's speaking in regards. And my concern is if they decide that they are going to have the property owner change the sewer line, I'm assuming it's probably going to be coming towards our place, so then that could be a concern, because we have a water line that is beside the sidewalk that goes from over by Peter's place along the side of the sidewalk and then underneath and into our house. And I'm a little concerned. I don't want that disturbed, because I had to pay to put that in way back in 1990 and have never had an issue with it, and I definitely don't want to have any issues with it in the future. So that's a concern that I've raised. And also in regards to the parking, they have said there's 3 existing parking spots in front of the one building. There's 2 parking spots in front of the other for a total of 5. They want to increase that to 7. So I'm wondering, there's a hedge that's there right now in the front, and I'm wondering if they're possibly talking about removing that hedge and bringing the driveway straight in. If they are, there could be a concern in the winter in regards to where the snow is placed there on that corner, which I'm sure Mr. Brown's probably well aware of. So I just wanted to raise those 2 concerns, and I thank Mayor and Council very much for listening to me. And if you have any questions of me, by all means, go ahead. I'll try and answer them.
no, we don't ask questions at this meeting. It's just to hear from the public.
Oh, okay.
So-
All right. Well,
all right.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else wish to speak? No? Okay. Mr. LG, has there been any letters received as a result of the notice?
Not to date.
Not to date. Okay, thank you. That concludes the second zoning bylaw amendment. Ms. Johnson, can you explain how the public was notified of the third zoning bylaw amendment, Z 1911? 80 Great North Road, John Jackson, planner for Parry Property Holdings.
Right, again, notice was given by prepaid first-class mail to the required prescribed agencies and property owners within 120 meters, posted on the property, and was placed on the town's website.
Okay. Mr. Algie, can you explain the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment?
The applicant has requested to amend the R2 zone to permit 2 additional dwelling units in an existing dwelling and 1 additional unit within another existing dwelling, and to permit 5 parking spaces in the front yard where currently 3 spaces are allowed. Currently, the total number of units is 2, but the application ultimately requests 5 units between 2 existing structures. The property is described as part of lots 31 and 32 on Plan 10, part of Block L on Plan 21, and parts 1 and 3 of 42R 8425.
Okay. So this, again, has to do with the other property on Great North Road. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this proposed zoning bylaw amendment?
Thanks again, Council. I'm just going to say ditto with one qualification. I'm aware of Peter's and Mr. Campbell's concern. We are investigating it. Peter's right, there's an old 4-inch line that's not out on the street, it just follows the perimeter of the road. It is owned by the town, and it's got problems from obviously being undersized, so we are engaging in getting professionals, whether it's a plumbing issue or whether it's an engineering issue, we're aware of it. Okay. So we are, in fact, going to be working with town staff to try and resolve those issues. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so at this time, does anyone wish to speak in favor of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? If so, you come forward, identify yourself by name and your address. Seeing none, does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Please identify yourself by name and give your address.
Thank you again. My concern, of course, is that there's extra people going to be in there. I understand. I partially heard what John just said, that they're investigating that, and I'm sure the town will investigate it. As far as I'm concerned, if the line is increased and it doesn't back up into my place, I'm in favor of the change.
All right.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Anyone else? You're going to say ditto too, Al, or?
Going to have the floor war out here. In regards to this one, this is the property that's the next one over from myself, so I would basically have the same concerns that I have with the original one, because basically it's going to be the same issue with both properties. There's one owner that owns both properties, so that's the way it's probably going to come down. And as long as things are addressed properly, I don't think there'd be any issues, but there are concerns that we have, so we just wanted to make that known.
Okay.
And
Very
thanks
good.
again.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none. Mr. Algie. Oh, there he is. Okay. Have there been any letters received as a result of this notice?
None to date.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That concludes the third zoning bylaw amendment. The public should contact staff or check the town's website to see where these amendments will come back for a decision. Council at its discretion may approve either the proposed zoning bylaw amendments. If so, it must either circulate notices of passing of the bylaws or give notice in the local press. Objections to the passing of the amendments will be received by the clerk within 20 days from the date of such notice is given, which objections will be forwarded to the local planning appeal tribunal. If an appeal is submitted and the appellant has not provided council with an oral or written submission before the passing of the bylaw, the local planning appeal tribunal may choose to dismiss the appeal. So I thank everyone. May I have a mover and seconder to declare the public meeting closed? Councillor McCann, Councillor Borneman, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Give me that back. Okay, may I have a mover and seconder for the minutes, please? Councillor Keith and Councillor Backman. That the minutes of the regular council meeting held September 3rd, 2019 be approved as circulated. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing nothing, all in favor? Okay. Your microphone? Your microphone?
I meant actually, Rebecca, to bring this to your attention, and I'm sorry, I don't know where it was right now, but there was a motion was forwarded or moved forward and seconded by the same person. I'll look for it and get back to you on that. Just a small little housekeeping thing.
Well, then that means we actually have an amendment, so. We'll find that, so. I'll just give Ms. Johnson a moment. Councillor Borneman. Just give her 1 second here. Okay.
Yeah, it's 9:01. I mean, this could be housekeeping, and I'll find it from the original resolution.
Yeah, but we still need to clarify this one. So it has to do with item 921. Seems like Councillor Burden was really busy on this one, but anyway, so Councillor McCann, you're moving the amendment, seconder for the amendment. Okay, Councillor Keith, we'll find out who the other person was that moved or seconded that particular one, but it does have to do with item 2.1. Okay,
9:01, yeah, so,
921, yeah.
so if you want to just make them, if you want to make a motion that it just be corrected per the
Yep.
resolution, then I can,
Yeah.
take care of that.
And and you're good with that. Yep.
I'm sorry, I meant to email you, Rebecca, when I noticed that.
Okay. All in favor of the amendment? Okay, all in favor of the resolution as amended? That's carried, thank you. So you're good to go with all that? Okay. Next is questions of staff. Councillor Keith.
Yes, Mr. Brown, could you advise what is the status of Warwick Street? Like, when do you anticipate it will now be completed? Before the snow?
Through your worship, the contractor Weeks Construction's working very hard at getting as much as they can get done in 2019. They've done a huge amount of work in the last couple of weeks due to the weather cooperating. I'm fairly confident they're going to get the work done before the end of this year to the first lift of asphalt, which is what they were expecting to get. So they're on. Their timing is good, but they just need some more good weather.
Yes, Councillor Keith.
My second question is, it's along the same line. I hate to say that dirty word snow, shall we say, but in any event, I see the plows. You have the plows already on the vehicles, so is that a sign, or are we at the same stage as last year, or what's the status there?
Through your worship, the mechanics and the staff have been working hard at getting the vehicles ready, as well as the trackless machines. That's the next on their list. So we're doing a bit of a preemptive setup as far as making sure that all our vehicles are ready to go. I am sincerely hopeful we don't see any snow till late December.
I would just say for the budget's sake alone, I would agree.
I think he wants to retire without any snow. Moving on. Any further questions of staff? Oh, sorry, Councillor Bachman.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is for Ms. Phillips. I'm just curious in regards to do we get reports from the Ontario Provincial Police regarding how many speeding tickets they are distributing in a year in our community, in our town?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we receive reports for POA that identify how many tickets are issued in each municipality or town in our area. So that information is available.
And is that available on our website?
I think it could be found as part of the agenda for the POA committee minutes and things like that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any further questions of staff? Seeing none, correspondence, Ms. Johnson.
Your Worship, we have 3 items of correspondence. The first is from Margaret Gain on Georgian Bay Avenue. It is regarding a request for a pipe to be installed under the sidewalk to deal with storm water and water pooling around around her property. This item has been referred to the Director of Public Works, and an acknowledgement of her letter has been sent. The second item is similar, from Butch and Eileen Faland on Georgian Bay Avenue, also with concerns about water pooling, water flooding on their property, and a similar request for a pipe to be installed under the sidewalk to drain the storm water from the property. Also, this letter has been referred to the Director of Public Works. The third item is from Gary Black. He is chair of the Parry Sound Anglers and Hunters. It is a request that town staff refrain from mowing milkweed, as the milkweed provides a habitat for monarch butterflies. This letter has been referred to the Director of Public Works and the Manager of Parks and Recreation, with an acknowledgement letter sent.
Okay, thank you. Next are deputations, and the first one that I have scheduled for tonight is Jesse Fraser about Save the Monarch. And I don't see Jesse here, so we'll move on to the next one, which is Sebastian McDonald. A request to change the speed limit along Riverdale Road from 50 kilometers an hour to 40 kilometers an hour. Welcome, Sebastian. It's okay, Sebastian. Just read off what you have there. It's all good. Do you know how to do a joke?
Sure.
Okay. And what is that?
I don't know.
Start reading, go.
I'm thinking of a joke.
No, start reading.
Okay. Pretend like you're in an empty house with nobody around. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Sebastian MacDonald and I am 8 years old. I live at 7 Riverdale Road in Parry Sound. Today I am hoping to convince you to lower the speed limit on my street from 50 kilometers an hour to 40 kilometers an hour. According to the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety, the risk of severe injury goes up the faster a car is traveling. At just under 50 kilometers an hour, the risk of severe injury is 75%. But at just under 40 kilometers an hour, the risk of severe injury drops to 25%. Thanks to Mr. Brown, we have data that shows that 933 cars drove on our street from August 2nd to August 12th, and the fastest speed recorded was 67 kilometers an hour. The average speed traveled by those cars was 52 kilometers an hour. There are 9 children that live and play between 2 Riverdale Road and 9 Riverdale Road. A lot of us like to ride our bikes, hunt for ghosts, play cops and robbers, and catch toads. Most of us are students at Parry Sound Public and St. Peter's School, and we walk to school. Plus, there are no sidewalks on our narrow and winding street. In the wintertime, it's especially dangerous because the snowbanks make the road even more narrow. My dad, brother, and I collected nearly 30 signatures of people who not only live on our street, but we also stop those who regularly walk by. I would like to respectfully ask Mayor and Council to consider passing a bylaw to reduce the speed limit on Riverdale Road from 50 kilometers an hour to 40 kilometers an hour. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sebastian. That was very well said. I'd be curious to know what Noah said to get you going.
What did Noah tell you?
He told me that pretend like I'm in a house with no one around me.
Oh, well, that's very good. Good suggestion, Noah. Yeah. Is there any council member that has a question for Sebastian? Yes, Councillor Keith.
So, Sebastian, I would like to know, how long did it take you to write that letter? Because you've done a lot of thinking.
Like about a week or so.
That's probably a lot more than many people take to write a letter. So it sounds like you thought about it.
We worked hard on it because we wanted mayor and council to lower the speed limit because cars are going too fast.
Okay. Councillor McCann.
Thank you. So Sebastian, were you the cop or the robber when you play?
I'm usually the robber.
Oh, okay. Well, what I want to ask is, you've come here tonight, and as Councillor Keith mentioned, you put a lot of thought into this. Have you? And I know Riverdale; it's kind of a windy road. It sounds like you and your friends have been out there, and perhaps maybe have been a little scared from time to time with some of the traffic. Can you tell us whether or not there's been some near misses?
Yeah, I've almost been hit by a car. We like to use wheelbarrows and put my stuffies in them and play around in the road. Not in the road, near the road. And usually cars go way too fast while we're playing it. And so I could get hit and get 100 broken bones or so.
Hey, well, thank you very much. Thank you for coming this evening and
You're
telling us
welcome.
about your situation.
Any further questions of Sebastian? Seeing none, thank you very much.
You are welcome.
Okay. The next deputation is Brenda Ryan and Susan Hersina, downtown blade signs.
That's a tough act to follow.
It is, isn't it?
We'll try and entertain you as well as he did. Mayor and councillors, it's great to be back here in front of you again. We have an exciting progress report on the beautification plan. As you know, my name's Brenda Ryan. I'm the chair of the beautification committee, and I'm here with Susan Hersina from the DBA. As you may recall from the beautification plan, the first recommendation listed was regarding signage, and that's what we're focusing on here tonight. The committee has been working very hard with, as a committee and in consultation with John Este and Peter Brown, to create a downtown-specific bylaw that would allow for blade signs in the downtown. Yeah. So this is the current state of the downtown. That's obviously on the east side, and the next slide is the west side. Can you go back to the? So you can see there's a large number of overhanging metal signs, and we are happy to report that we've spoken to every business that owns one of those signs, and they're all willing to have them taken down and replaced with smaller pedestrian-sized blade signs. You can So the vision, this is more of what we would like to see in the downtown. If you can flip. These are some sort of inspiration photos that we've been looking at. There is $20,000 set aside from the downtown revitalization grant to remove these the large overhanging metal signs and replace them with the blade signs. So this initiative is ready to go. What we're hoping to illustrate in these photos is just how much nicer the streetscape can be with lower pedestrian-friendly blade signs. Businesses would still have fascia signs, so the signs that are against the building, but they would also be allowed to have a smaller blade sign. And we've been working to look at what size is appropriate, what heights are appropriate, and that sort of thing. We've been working with John and Peter on that issue. The west side, if you can keep going. So the west side, that's still the east side, if you keep going, yeah. So, yeah, keep going. We just wanted to give you some photos of kind of the current state. So there aren't a lot of overhanging metal signs or canopies on the east side right now, and it actually looks quite lovely. And there are some existing blade signs there as well. So that would be the goal, is to have it look more consistent on both sides of the street. We've also been in contact with Kropf Industrial to build the metal brackets, so a nice simple black metal bracket that the blade signs would be attached to. And these are some examples of what we would like to see. And finally, this is an inspiration photo of where we would strive to be in the very near future. Thank you.
That's it?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Backlund.
We haven't included lighting specifically. We would certainly encourage, through the consultation process that we've initiated, we would encourage businesses to do surface-mounted lights that are more decorative, but that's not something we've been specifically working on.
Just a follow-up.
Yep.
In regards to the consultation, is the consultation process still open, and are you working on that with businesses? Because I read in the report it was for the first 2 years. I don't know what year we're in, so.
Yeah, we're just really going into the second year since we've brought out the beautification plan, and we still are consulting with businesses, and we've actually had a number of them. Susan and I have been around to almost every business on the main street, on James Street, both sides, and there's actually quite a few that are looking to do something, so we have mentioned to them that there is consultation. We've been to about 4 businesses and helped them already.
Wonderful. Just one last question. Now you spoke of the businesses taking down the metal signs. I don't know what they're called, if they're awnings maybe. Some of the business, like for instance, Just Icing Boutique, Beverly's used to have one when she was in that location. Are they doing anything, or do those stay?
Those awnings they're permitted by the current sign bylaw, so they can stay. So it'd be up to the business owner whether they would want to change those. We have recommended in the plan that we like those awnings and that they add character, so we wouldn't be recommending they take them down.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Borneman, then Councillor Keith.
Good to see you here again, Ms. Ryan. Is there a formal process? There's $20,000 in a fund to do this. How is this going to roll out? How do you see this happening, and is there a time frame for this to occur?
Yes, so what we've done is we got a couple of quotes for companies to remove all of the metal blade signs. So that money is allotted for, and we're actually ready to go with that at any time. However, obviously the businesses don't want their metal signs taken down until the new blade signs are ready to go back up. So we're just in the process of getting the new blade signs designed. The way that we prioritized it is that anyone that has a big metal sign that's coming down gets first crack at having a new blade sign. And then we've set out a list of priorities. So then the next on the list, if there's still money available, would be for anyone who doesn't have a blade sign. And we've set out a list of sort of priorities so that the money gets spent sort of high priority down. Right. Oh, sorry, and by the end of March, the money has to be spent.
Okay. Councillor Keith.
Yes, I think my question, or I believe it's somewhat the same line as Councillor Borneman. These blade signs that would be erected, would they all be the same size? And number two, is there any color restrictions in respect to that?
So what we've done is really asked to put in the new sign bylaw a square meters. So it restricts to, you know, say about 30 by 18, but you can have that in any configuration that you'd like. You know, it can be horizontal, vertical, whatever sort of suits your business and suits your business logo. And we aren't really restricting any colors, or, you know, each business can make it quite unique. And we think that the variety will be important. What we're trying to do is make the height somewhat consistent, so that you know, so we don't end up with a mismatch of signs all over the place again. So we're trying to set the bottom height, and then anything can go above that. I think you can see in this picture there's quite a variety of signs, and I think we want to encourage that.
I guess one comment and one question. I know recently I was on Mackinac Island again, and it seems to me they've got it down pretty good on blade signs and yawnings, and because that is definitely a pedestrian-friendly island, and I think they evidently know how to do it, because it just keeps growing the business there. But when the question was asked a moment ago about lighting, I was just wondering, is it possible for people, for lighting to be put on, maybe it's solar lighting, but to actually be put on a blade sign? So if somebody wanted something like that, that gave that extra attraction, does that exist?
Currently, the sign bylaw doesn't allow for illuminated signs. There are specific rules around lighting and, you know, not impeding traffic and things like that, but I can't recall, yeah, specifically. You know, the main thing is that the signs aren't internally lit, so we don't get. But if someone wanted to externally light it, as long as it meets the you know, the lighting requirements of the bylaw, I'm sure they could.
Any further questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is reports, and Councillor Borneman. Start with you tonight.
Well, you and council will enjoy this. I've had a quiet couple of weeks. A couple of meetings were canceled due to quorum issues, so I have no report this evening, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor McCann.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and fellow council members, staff, and the public. I'm almost as close to Councillor Borneman. I have just one very quick report, and that was one meeting this morning that I attended along with Councillor Backman, the monthly meeting of the Parry Public Library. We received a couple of bequests, which helps out with some of the costs of running the library. We reviewed our IT needs, computer needs, and inventory, and discussed how we might replace some of that in the future, whether by purchasing or refurbished or what have you. Treasurer's report was accepted, and we're going to be reviewing our policy over the course of the next couple of months. And that's it. That's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bachman?
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. As Councillor McCann noted, today I did attend alongside him at the Public Library Board meeting. And on September 12th, I attended in Rosso the Park to Park Trails committee meeting. I'd just like to state that one of the major projects that we're working on right now through Park to Park, or Park to Park is working on, is again, they're looking for volunteers, especially to do work on the trails with a lot of the bridge maintenance. We've had to close a lot of the bridges this season, and with you know, ATVing coming out in the fall, and with snowmobiling, there's a dire need to not only get funding, but a lot of the work in order to decrease the funding that the organization needs is to get volunteers out to work on the trails and do a lot of the bridge work. So I'd just like once again to encourage you or anyone who may be interested to reach out to Park on their website and share it with friends as well. That one of the items to assist with the costs, because we do not, the total figure, because one bridge, which in the near future we are looking at funding through the OFSC, is near $350,000. So right now they're looking to repair 2 or 3 bridges with a total cost of around $30,000. So they are in the process of implementing a GoFundMe charitable donation platform that you can donate to. So again, if you would like to donate to keeping the trails open this season and for the future, feel free to go and make a donation. And that is everything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Keith?
Thank you, Your Worship, fellow councillors, staff, and the public. Few things that I did during the last 2 weeks. I did attend the fly-in, the airport fly-in, and I enjoyed it. Unfortunately, it started off cold for me, so I could have had it warmed up, but and it seemed because of, again, the inclement weather, there wasn't as many planes, at least early in the morning when I went, compared to the year before. I did miss Councillor Borneman's cooking, but maybe that had some correlation with the number of planes that didn't turn up. Who knows? Number 2, I attended the open house for the Canadian Mental Health Services in Parry Sound. It's their new location now. It's really lovely. There's so many offices there to be, and rooms to be able to provide effective service, and a lot of opportunity to help people who are in need. I also attended on Saturday the Soapbox Derby. That was kind of fun, again, inclement weather, so it seemed to me there was only about, I did my best to count, 100 people, but certainly there were 15 participants, some as far as I understand, Sudbury, St. Catharines, and I was a little bit disappointed that I didn't hear anybody from the town of Parry Sound had entered the car race, but the 15 participants that had 3 trial runs before the races officially started, it certainly had a whale of a time, and I was able to practice at least trying to take pictures, and I think I did pretty good, seeing as there's only 2 racing at a time. So I'm hoping that next year that the Derby will continue to grow, and maybe we'll be on a circuit, because certainly there were some really fancy soapbox vehicles, and there was some of the old-fashioned type. So it was really nice to see all that creativity. I wanted to also say I checked the arena, the Bobby Orr Community Center, and the ice rink is up for public use on September the 23rd. Again, I found a little cold in there, so I decided not to stay too long, but certainly they're doing a fine job there, and they've just about got everything perfect, it seems to me. I did attend also the Northeast Planning Board Authorities Technician Workshop. I attended that recently, and then afterwards I stayed to provide input for the provincial policy review statement. I should also remind you, just so you're aware, on Sunday, September 29th, the flags for any of the Ontario government buildings will be flying at half-mast for police officers and peace officers to give recognition to those services there. And so, all in all, and remember that the ship, the Champlain, is in tonight and will be here in town tomorrow. And I just want to say about that also, that in going to visit each time there has been a ship in, I think the town of Parry Sound is becoming more known as a port to be in. And I've heard some really favorable comments about people enjoying going downtown. And I'm hoping that maybe next year they'll also be able to have the opportunity to go up to the museum and Tower Hill, because it's a beautiful area. And having traveled in August time to a number of communities, I can tell you that we have, like Tower Hill is a beautiful area there, and it's certainly just as nice as many, and actually nicer than some of the communities that boast about their lovely parks and that. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On September the 11th, I attended the monthly meeting of the Downtown Business Association. There was discussion regarding the signage, as Brenda and Susan just reported to us a few minutes ago. There was some discussion about the possibility of offering associate memberships to businesses who are just outside of the boundaries of the DBA, and that's being investigated further and will be reported on further later. And upcoming events, the Girlfriends Weekend and the Halloween celebrations will be coming up, so keep an eye on your programs for information on those functions. On September 12th, I attended the monthly meeting of the Social Services Board. There was some discussion on the delegations in Ottawa at the AMO conference, and it was agreed by everyone in attendance that the CAO, Joe Bradbury, did a wonderful job of making his presentations to the various ministries, and of course only time will tell how successful those delegations were. The issue regarding the payment in lieu of taxes on the hub, it was postponed again, pending litigation, so that will be dealt with at a later time. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Council, staff, and public. September 5th, I had a series of meetings with local residents. September 10th, 13th, I attended the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, otherwise known as FCM, meetings in Waterloo. On September 11th, the local fire department's honor guard performed a ceremony in remembrance of the victims of the 9/11 tragedy in New York City, and it was very well done by their department. September 14th, I presented a certificate to Sharon and Larry Johnson in recognition of their 60th anniversary. They were surrounded by friends and family, and everybody was in pretty good spirits. I then went to Lakeland to present a certificate to Mrs. Wager in recognition of her 90th birthday, and again she was surrounded by many friends and family, and they had a nice celebration for her. I'd also like to offer my condolences to the family of Reverend Bill Boyd. He was the minister at St. James United Church for many years, and then some of the outreach area churches as well. So he was a very nice man, and he is going to be missed. That's my report. So on with the rest of the meeting. This one? Okay. So item 911, moved by Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor Burden, that a decision on official plan amendment number 3 and rezoning application Z 1906 Smith Crescent, YMCA/Wickman be deferred until an environmental impact study has been submitted to the satisfaction of the town. Discussion. Councillor Borneman, then Councillor McCann.
Evening, Mr. LG. I'm wondering if our purposes here would be met by directing that there be some sort of vegetative barrier around the perimeter of this property maintained, if that would satisfy our needs.
Through your worship, it wouldn't technically satisfy the policy. The policy from the province down says to do an environmental study to demonstrate no negative impact. That being said, and this is just a general statement, that typically environmental studies do recommend vegetative buffers in between wetlands and development. So I can't answer your question definitively, but that's usually an outcome of environmental studies at a very high level.
Follow up? Yep.
Just to follow up, I understand, you know, I think, I understand that what we're trying to do here and that you're basically playing to the rule book. I guess I'm, you know, I'm suggesting that the rule book needs to be simplified to allow growth of this nature. And in conclusion, the one really final question I have for you, I think, Taylor, is this the end of the journey for the proponents? It seems to have been kind of a long, meandering path, and I think they'd like some assurances that if this study is done and if it is, you know, indicates, as your report seems to, that it's unlikely that there would be any negative impacts, that there isn't another study and another report ad infinitum to move forward with this.
Through your worship, no, this is it. The adjacent wetland was flagged through the public process, so that was brought up by a neighboring property owner, and the CN Rail agreed to remove the requirement for a noise study because it's for a single detached lot, as long as through the severance process we register a warning clause on titles. So there's nothing else.
Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. LG. Then, so a couple of questions. If I own a piece of residential property that's not serviced with town water and sewers, and I want to put a septic system in, do I need a permit for that?
Through your worship, yes, you do. The Mattawa North Bay Conservation Authority is the approval for septic systems.
Okay, so that's my first question. So with regards to this situation, many of us have been out to the property. We've looked at things. We're not environmental or turtle experts, certainly to the naked eye and to the layman, things look okay. Council may be prudent in going ahead and saying, well, you know, if we play it safe and require the study to be done, that we could save the applicant a lot of trouble down the way, especially if there was an appeal. And the big thing here, of course, is the fact that we're asking for a change of use of the piece of property that's that's the topic of the day here. So I guess my concern is, sorry, I lost where I was going, but I think I'm sorry, I totally lost my train of thought as to what I wanted to say. I think I was making more of a comment that this seems to be the safe route that we need to go. And as Councillor Borman was asking, is this the end of the road then? And that should the study pass, that we should be okay from here then. Sorry.
Yes, assuming it's a study in support of the applicant's request, that's, we just have to adopt the bylaw. There's always appeal process, but I never hazard a guess on that.
That's right, thank you.
Any, Councillor Bachman?
Just out of curiosity, do we have a time, do you know from past experience, how long these EPAs usually take?
Through your worship, it depends on the environmental firm, so that it's the applicant's responsibility to engage the firm. So I couldn't give you a comment on that. It depends on firm and what they're busy with at that current time. So unfortunately, I can't answer that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, it's carried. What's the next one? Direction. Next is item 912, signs for out-of-town events, and mover and seconder for the direction, please. Councillor Borneman. Seconder. Councillor Keith, okay. That is a follow-up to the direction given at the August 13th, 2018 council meeting. No changes be made to the sign bylaw. Discussion? Councillor Borneman?
Obviously for Mr. Este. Mr. Este, you're suggesting no changes be made for this rationale, but the review of the sign bylaw is ongoing, as I recall.
Through you, Your Worship, that's exactly correct. We've been working with the Downtown Business Association on various things relating to the sign bylaw, and other elements of the sign bylaw are under review, and there will be a new or significantly amended sign bylaw coming forward very soon.
Okay, very good. Anything further? All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Burden, second by Councillor Borneman, that council, contingent upon the archipelago participating in the due diligence phase, accept the bid from CS&P Architects to undertake the due diligence work related to the Wellness Center and pool project in the amount of $127,100, excluding HST. Discussion. Councillor Borneman.
Mr. Harris, it's not exclusively the town, and hopefully the archipelago are doing this. Where do the other municipalities stand with respect to this issue, sir?
Through the mayor, there's a total budget of $170,000. This is $127 of it. It's being cost shared with 6 other municipalities. The Carling, I think on September 3rd, indicated that they didn't see value in a due diligence process. But the other, McDougall has approved the report that the town approved. They'll be participating. And yesterday, I understand at Siegmund Council, Whitestone Council, and McKellar Council, they also supported participating in this due diligence. There's going to be a positive recommendation at the archipelago this Friday. And the people I've talked to expect that it will pass without any difficulty.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Bachman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Once this RFP, should it move forward, how long do we anticipate this process will be?
Through the mayor, when we originally sent out the RFP, we were estimating 6 months. That takes us to kind of early spring. Part of it is if there's some environmental work or anything around that, if it can be done before snow and then the seasons, but we're thinking 6 months.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 931, moved by Councillor Burden, second by Councillor Borneman, the Council of the Town of Parry Sound does hereby approve the draft consolidated financial statements for the year end December 31st, 2018 in Schedule A as attached. And we have Eric Kavanaugh here to answer any questions, and possibly if you're going to give an overview or something quick. Yep.
So I brought the letter that is addressed to the mayor and members of council. I figured I'd go through that quickly, highlight some key points. But I'll start by introducing myself. So I'm Eric Kavanaugh, manager at BDO. I work under Giselle Bodkin, and I was the detail reviewer on this file. So in summary, status of the audit, basically the only things outstanding, or only thing at this point, is subsequent event review up until today's date, the date of approval. Materiality on a consolidated level was set at 680,000. That's approximately 2% of revenues. And I've got some highlighted items here to go over with you tonight. Internal control matters, there was nothing specific to note. Independence, there wasn't any concerns on that front. And in Appendix A of this letter, you can also find any unadjusted differences that we didn't adjust for in the audit. These items would be considered immaterial for purposes of the financial statements. As part of the audit, we request representations from management. A copy of that letter can be provided to you if need be. And then we also ask, as being members of council, if you're aware of any fraud or anything of that nature, that you would bring that to our attention as part of the audit. So we weren't made aware of anything. So the significant highlights here that I have are, we have significant risks of material misstatement and other areas of interest that I've noted here. So for one, management override of controls. Management is always in the unique position to be able to override controls within an organization. To address that, we review journal entries, we review estimates for potential bias to address this risk, and nothing came up of any significance in those areas. Revenue recognition. There might be bias to show a balanced budget. This creates a risk around revenue recognition, cutoff, so on and so forth. So BDO reviews cutoff of purchases and revenues around year end to make sure things are accounted for in the proper period. We reconcile and vouch the grants to agreements and review deferred revenue to ensure that it's being recognized in an appropriate manner. Again, there was no significant findings as a result of these procedures. Contaminated sites. So the town owns a plethora of land and buildings. There could be a risk that some of these sites fall under the scope of being contaminated, in which a liability could potentially exist. So, we do this on all municipal engagements because it's a PSAS standard for contaminated sites. So review a list of the town's properties with management and various directors of the departments. There were some sites that were noted that had contaminations above environmental standards. but these sites are currently in active use, and the contamination does not inhibit the ability to use the sites. We concluded that there's no, at this time, not a requirement for the town to set up any liabilities with regards to cleanup costs of these sites, so those are the main points there. The WSIB liability, so the town is a Schedule II reporter and is responsible for the cost of any WSIB claims made. The reason it's more of a highlight in this town is because you guys do have a volunteer fire department, and when you have a fire department, obviously WSIB risk becomes a bigger issue. So BDO reviewed the actuary's assumptions and the overall reasonability of the liability that was set up based on the actuary report, and everything there seems to be in order. Contributed assets is another area. You may recall in the prior period, we've done a prior period adjustment to capture some of these contributed assets, infrastructure that's put in by, you know, maybe it's a school board doing work. I think that was the case last year, or might be a development going in. They're going to be contributing assets, and you guys are assuming these assets after the work is done and paid for. So those assets need to be recognized. What we've done in terms of work there, we review the minutes for potential new projects and agreements that could have assumed or contributed assets, discussed and followed up with management on any items that we found. There were no noted or assumed no noted assumed or contributed assets in the year identified as a part of the results of these procedures this year, but we did identify areas of interest that could be coming up in the future, such as the OPP station and McLean and Dennis Drive, so which will potentially, and I think most certainly, have assumed assets as a part of those going forward. So those have been raised as points forward in our files to follow up on in coming years. Another area of significant importance this year, I think, was tax appeals and write-offs. So in the recent years, there's been a mass of appeals by the big box stores. It has resulted in significant write-downs of taxes for you guys. So what we do to address that risk, as it's been an ongoing issue, is we've reviewed subsequent settlements and open appeals related to MPAC assessments. And as a result of these procedures, you know, we have an allowance recorded in the financial statements of $467,000 and a write-off expense of this year of approximately $190,000. And then last but not least, the Lakeland investment. So it was brought to BDO's attention that there was some concern related to how the investment in Lakeland was recorded or has been recorded versus other municipalities that hold an interest in the company. So we performed a full analysis on, first of all, if it fit into the definition of the reporting entity, and as such would be qualified to be recorded as a business, government business enterprise, a GBE, as some of the other municipalities have it recorded as. And then we went even further to analyze if it could also be potentially considered a government business partnership, which would result in the same equity method treatment of the investment. So upon review of the standards, consultations with our national office, and we determined that the investment was accounted for appropriately as a portfolio investment. But we did add a little bit of disclosure in the note to the financial statements on that investment with regards to, based on your share of 15.57%, what would be your share of those net assets, you know, if the company basically bought you out or something. That figure doesn't represent the fair market value of what that would be. That just represents what they have currently in their equity as of that date and 15% of it. So the fair market value would likely be significantly more, right? If another company was to come in and buy that same share, they would pay a premium, so. And that's pretty much all I wanted to go over of significance in the letter. Like I said, there's a couple of unadjusted differences. One was a small grant cutoff error, and the other one was liability related to the landfill monitoring costs, had that been set up in the past. But neither one of those items are material, and therefore they weren't adjusted for. So that's the letter. Go over the financial statements very high level for you. So these are the financial statements for the year ending December 31st, 2018. Consolidated financial statements. You can see by the audit report, it's a clean opinion. And you might have noticed the audit report is a lot longer than it was last year. So we now have a 2-page report versus a 1-page report for a little light reading. And the main changes in the audit report is that it provides a lot more information than what it used to. And the order of the paragraphs is now all mixed up. So they decided to put the opinion paragraph at the very start because it's the most important paragraph. And then they've really dove into the responsibilities of management and those charged with governance, so council in your case, for the consolidated statements, and they really dove into what our responsibilities are as the auditor for the consolidated financial statements. So that's all laid out right in the audit report now. All that information used to be available in, like the engagement letter, things like that, but now it's in your face, so I guess. So moving on, the statement of financial position. So this is basically as of December 31st, what assets and liabilities does the town have? Well, you guys have sitting in financial assets, 23.8 million, down last year about 2 million. Just some differences in short-term investments and accounts receivable. But you'll also see liabilities have gone down as 17.3 million this year versus 19.1 last year. So overall, your net financial assets, which is basically, what would happen if you paid all your liabilities with the assets that you have, you'd have 6 million left over. So, very comparable year over year. Good position to be in. If that said net debt, then maybe that'd be another story. And then below that, you have your non-financial assets. So the most significant line item on these financial statements, or on the statement of financial position, is going to be your tangible capital assets, all your roads and infrastructure that has been accumulating over the years. So 126 million. Moving on to the consolidated statement of operations and accumulated surplus. So this is the activity that happened throughout the year. So Jan 1, 2018 to December 31st, 2018. We have revenues of 34.6 million, and we have expenses of 31.9 million, ending up with a total surplus of 2.6 million. Or 2.7 if you round it up. So if you compare that to the budget, revenues were higher than your budget. Basically, from what I can see here, it's the timing of the grants. You budget for the grant in the year that you expect to get it, but the grant might be deferred until the work is actually done, right? Big capital projects, big infrastructure projects. So that's the main difference there. You may also be looking at the budgeted surplus of 250,000. There is a budget note number 21 that reconciles that back to your the budget that you would have passed in council. So going from like a net zero position to how we got to that 252. The net financial assets, this basically goes over what that 6.7 million, how it got to that from last year's number. So basically, it's going to be all the changes in your capital assets and your prepaids that end up making your change in your net financial assets. And then you've got the statement of cash flows. Shows you where all your cash went in the year, what it was spent on. So you can see overall, it's broken up into 4 categories: your operating, capital, investing, and financing. And the net change in cash year over year was 88,000 in the positives. Just going into some of the notes, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the significant accounting policies, but I would like to point out in the first note here, the basis for consolidation. So these statements include the land ambulance, the Provincial Offences Act, and the library and the business, the Parry Sound Business Improvement Area Board. So all these are consolidated into these statements. And then the significant accounting policies just continue to go over how all the different transactions are accounted for within the statements. A breakdown of your cash in Note 2 between general reserve and obligatory. Short-term investments in Note 3, a breakdown of what's in there. GICs, marketable securities, and government bonds. Note number 4, that's your Lakelands note. So you can see here we've disclosed the total shareholders' equity of Lakeland as of December 31st was 54 million. Of that, you guys own 15.57%, equating to approximately 8,400,000. So that would be your share of the net assets. Bank indebtedness, Note 5, the line of credit was not used. Note number 6 is your WSIB. You can see there's an obligation set up for 300,000. OMERS contributions for the year, so it's a multi-employer plan, so you don't see the town does not recognize any share of the OMERS pension surplus or deficit. We just disclose in total what it was. So 485,000 in contributions was what the town made this year to it. Note number 8 is going to be a breakdown of your deferred revenue. Most significant item in there is some government funding for capital projects. Note number 9 is your obligatory breakdown. Note number 10, details on your long-term debt. Total long-term debt at this point is 13 million, and interest related to that long-term debt is approximately 600,000. The collateral guarantee that you guys used to be in on with the Belvedere Heights Home for the Aged, you've been released to that guarantee in the year, so that's no longer going to be there next year. And contingent liabilities, nothing significant to note, nothing out of the ordinary. Commitments, you guys committed to the purchase of a fire department pumper rescue vehicle in the amount of 522,000. And then your capital asset note, you can see you have additions of 8 million, disposals of 1.5 million. A breakdown of your accumulated surplus. Oh, yes.
Yeah, just if you go back to number 11 there, the being relieved of the responsibility here regarding Belvedere Heights, is that due to the change of the legislation where long-term care was able to borrow its own funding? Is that why they've been relieved of that?
That might have been. We received a letter from management that basically showed that you were taken off of the as being a guarantor on their loan that they had. So we just wanted to disclose that the town had been taken out of that, and next year that note will disappear. But that could be the reason. That could be the source reason.
Okay, thank you.
Potentially, yeah. Note number 17 is a breakdown of what you budgeted in taxes compared to what was brought in. Many of the differences there mainly end up being your payments in lieu, things like that. And then note number 18 breaks down contributions to unconsolidated joint boards. Note number 19 will give you a breakdown of your POA revenues and expenses. Note number 20 is going to give you a breakdown of the land ambulance revenues and expenses. And then number 21, the budget reconciliation. That brings you from your financial plan budget of 0, adds back all of your non-GAAP type of things that you budget for, like capital expenditures, debt repayment, right? And then brings you back down to that 252 that you saw in the statement of operations as your budget. And then we do have a few subsequent events to note. The town received a debenture in the amount of 4.5 million. I believe that for William and Emily Street. That happened subsequent to year end. And the town has entered into an agreement with the West Parry Sound Health Center, which provides the land ambulance services, and that contract is approximately $8 million. The town has entered into an operating agreement with the Township of Archipelago for the utilization of the property as a land ambulance base. So that commitment there, which happened, is going to be $533,000 over the first 15 years, and then the town's going to be responsible for its proportionate share of the operating costs after that. And then I'm not going to go into the segmented information, basically the information by department, just another way to present it, right? So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from council? Councilor McCann?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your work. Earlier in your presentation, you were mentioning that there were hadn't found anything with regards to bad practices or whatever. I understand, and this is for the public's knowledge, that our systems from day to day are set up that no one person can go in, set up a vendor, create a bill and pay it, or invent things. That it takes teamwork and the knowledge of a significant number of people to make the money flow, so to speak.
Oh, yeah, so you're talking about segregation of duties? Mm-hmm. Yes. So yeah, the town does maintain a solid base of segregation of duties. With regards to purchases, money doesn't go out without at least 2 people having approved it, right? So we rely on and test controls around purchases as part of the audit and cash disbursements. We didn't have any. If there was anything serious that we noted, we would bring it up. Other than that, we do make management letter points for items that are not significant enough to bring to council, where we see that controls could be improved, that sort of thing. But that would be the only thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Further? Well, Eric, thank you very much.
No problem.
My
pleasure.
Good report. Thank you for your keeping it concise.
No problem.
Ms. Phillips, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so the town surplus of $2,698,732 For financial statement purposes, that surplus is different than as compared to the budget. So the differences, as mentioned, are how we treat amortization, capital expenditures, contributions and withdrawals from reserve and reserve funds, or debt repayment activities. So I just wanted to mention that. Later in my reserve transfer report, it refers to the town's surplus, which is 1.6 million as compared to the budget, and some items are identified in that report that contribute to that surplus on an apples to apples type basis for the town.
Yep. Good, thank you. Yeah, I noticed that. It's good. Anything further? No? All in favor? And that's carried, none opposed. Thank you very much, everybody, for all their work. Now that this is approved, it will go to the website, right, for, so people can view it?
Yes, it'll be published on the website.
Good, thank you. Okay, thanks, Eric. Okay, thank you for all your work. Oops, sorry. Good, thank you. Next is item 932, insurance, joint and several liability, provincial consultation. I need a mover and seconder. Councillor Backman and Councillor Keith. Council directs staff to provide comments to the provincial consultation process regarding joint and several liability based on the feedback of the BFL and annual insurance premium costs. Discussion. Councillor Borneman.
Maybe Ms. Phillips could tell the public what we're up to here.
Okay, thank you. The purpose of the report is to advise council regarding the town's general insurance policy and how it relates to the joint and several liability consultations. The provincial review that's occurring is due to concerns about rising insurance costs and the resulting impact on property taxes. So, although the town has not suffered any claims directly impacted by joint and several liability as confirmed by the insurance provider, the town has been subject to increasing insurance premiums, which have more than doubled in a 10-year period. Feedback from our insurer has indicated that the source of the problem caused by uncertainty is decreased competition amongst insurers willing to underwrite municipal liability, leading to reduced availability of coverage, increased pricing, higher deductibles, and less favorable terms overall. So staff is seeking direction from council on whether they would like to provide comments to the provincial consultation process based on the evidence that we have, the facts.
Well, I will say that that's what the province is looking for. The province did commit in January, I believe, of this year. AMO has been pushing for this for a number of years to try and have a review or to protect municipalities in joint and several liabilities. So the province did say that they were going to take a good hard look at this and see what they can do. So let's get the information into them so they have concrete evidence to work with, and hopefully it'll help reduce some of our premiums. So anything further? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Go. Moved by Councillor Borneman and seconded by Councillor Burden that council receives the 2018 Reserve and Reserve Fund Annual Report attached to Schedule A in compliance with the town's Reserve and Reserve Fund policy, and further, the council hereby approves the allocation of the surplus in Schedule B. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Vanessa Backman and Councillor Backman, and usually, okay. and second by Councillor Keith, that upon recommendation of the Triton Engineering Services Limited, Council accept the quotation from Weeks Construction Incorporated for the force main replacement on Joseph Street in the amount of $158,859.49, excluding HST, this quotation being the lowest of three quotations received, and that the funds in the amount of $75,000 allocated for the 10,006 Ditch Witch vacuum trailer in the 2019 budget be reallocated to this project, and that the remaining amount taken from the wastewater reserves. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, Councillor Keith?
Yes, please, could I be educated? What is this Ditch Witch vacuum trailer that the money is being moved from, please?
Through your worship, in early 2018, or 2017, late 2017, we were looking at acquiring a vacuum trailer, which is a smaller version of our vacuum truck that we have over the operations yard. It's more of a portable trailer that allows us to go in and clean out sanitary laterals more efficiently using a high pressure hose as well as a vacuum system. When the budget was struck, the $75,000 was the price of the trailer at the time. Within about 4 months, that price almost doubled because of the price of steel, because of the price of the equipment. So we basically they outpriced themselves completely. So we're now looking at other options to accommodate what we want to do in the future. So that's what that is.
Okay. Anything further? All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Backman, that upon the recommendation of Triton Engineering Services, Council accept the quotation from Weeks Construction Incorporated for the retaining wall replacement at Bay Street and James Street in the amount of $95,584, excluding HST, this quotation being the lowest of three quotations received. Any discussion? Councillor Backman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question, Peter, when was this work going to begin?
Through your worship, if council approves this tonight, our plan is to have a pre-construction meeting on Monday, and they will probably start shortly afterwards.
I think the stuff's piled up already, isn't it? Well, I noticed something down there. Anyway, Councillor Keith.
Yes, just for clarity, please, could you advise me, do you remember who the construction company was for the other part of the retaining wall?
Your worship, it was Weeks Construction that did the first section on Bay Street.
Okay, so does that mean even though there's a difference in time, is it a hope for maybe that this retaining wall will last about the same length of time, regardless of what end was started at? And what sort of length of time are we hoping this time? It just seems we had walls that were built by Romans and are still standing, and now we don't seem to have that ability.
Through your worship, I think the Romans had it right as far as how to build the walls, but the material that they're using on these particular walls are confirmed that they're a superior product compared to what has been installed the last 20 years around here. They'll last a long time. I'm confident of that. They've got great reviews. They're being used all over the place, so I'm confident that will last many, many years.
Good. Anything further? All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Backman, second by Councillor Keith, that bylaw number 2019-6954, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2014-6428, the agreement with Massasauga Management Incorporation for the operation of Big Sound Marina and the town dock, and supersede amending bylaw 2017-6704 and bylaw number 2018-6858 be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Backman, second by Councillor Keith, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered to rest second and third time passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Oh, all in favor then? That's carried. So moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Backman that the bylaw number 196955, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor Keith, seconded by Councillor Backman that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? That's carried. So, prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next regular meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, October 1st, and will be held in the council chambers, top floor of 52 Seagon Street. Public access to the building is off Gibson Street. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. Regular and special meetings are now live streamed. Please check news and public notices on our website at www.parrysound.ca for instructions to watch live or see earlier council meetings. Agendas, changes to the council meeting schedule, and notices of special council meetings will be posted on the town's website at www.parrysound.ca under news and public notices prior to a council meeting. The public is available to view an electronic copy of the complete agenda with attachments on the town's website. Just search council calendar and the date of the meeting. Should you wish to receive the combined agenda via email, you may make that request on our website or contact the clerk at the municipal office. The minutes of the council meetings will be posted within 2 days after the council meeting on the town's website. Your TV will continue to air the regular Parry Sound council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. For Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.